Hi everyone, it's Maria from Jadola Papier. Welcome back to my channel. This week I have an artist's palette and sketch notebook. It's a notebook done similar in style to the trifold, but not quite as bulky. So this one really is meant for travel or to be able to take on short trips, etc. And just like the other books, it is from a salvaged book, The Official Secretary of the Court and of Witty People. So it's great for savvy, fashionable letters, I guess. And it's from 1882, French. So the notebook itself looks like it's a set, but actually it comes with this palette collector. I found this image on Pinterest. Vintage, possibly even antique linen and flax, cotton or canvas from France, Miab, a brown paper porcelain, my favorite seller. And I always use it to wipe my hands after painting. But once I saw this image on Pinterest, I knew, yep, I'm going to go ahead and use the rest of it. So this is actually a palette collector because I've painted you using acrylic paints, different colors. You're going to see a few of them throughout the journal. The journal is actually wrapped in this 1920s coin bag, bank coin bag that was used during the Great Depression. People would actually carry their belongings in it. So this has been washed, but people, it's heartbreaking. I don't know why. So I feel like I'm living out of boxes all the time and carrying my things around. So I've washed these coin bags, but it was a perfect size for this travel notebook. I'll go ahead and bring it straight out here. It was a mere just under 4 inches, maybe exactly 4 inches with the original spine, by almost 7 inches, and I've tried to keep it similar in size, but now it's nearly 4 3/4 inches wide. Spine, as you saw on the damaged book, was already peeling in apart, and then I tried to salvage the rest of the leather spine, and instead of using it in the book, I just tried to redo it here. So you'll see that it looks like it's just a typical standard notebook, but it's in fact a double gusset or double spined notebook that opens up completely. Someone had asked how I attached this rope to the outside of the spine. It's working as two functions. One, to protect what's left of the little bit of leather. So when you go to grip it, your hand touches the rope first, but also just to give it a little texture, something robust, since the spine was already damaged. So I stitched it on top of the cover that was already stitched to this fabric. So I stitched right through the fabric and the cover and stitched one end, twisted it, and stitched the other end to the back cover. So it's basically just waxed linen thread. So one hook here and one thread hook there. I went around about 3 times to make sure that the rope doesn't come off. So when you open it up, it is meant to be opened wide at the same time, but you can work on one side at a time if you want. So for example, here's the first side. I simply just, with the fabric, I reinforced it with this art paper, the Canson black drawing paper. I kept the end papers of the original book. I tried to use up some of the pages, but most of the pages are inside this palette keeper. But you can open it up just like my trifolds, double wide, just so that you can work on spreads that are either coordinated or intentionally designed together, to be together. I make up, and I love the reds and the pinks and the mauves. I can't wear it this dark, but I love it anyway. And then one of my all-time favorite artists is Chagall, because he was the first artist I saw in a real museum in France, in the south of France, in Nice actually, the Chagall Museum. And before even realizing that I would do it for this project, similar style as him. in a lot of cubed and or segmented colors, very abstract. So anyway, I'm ahead of myself. So back to the structure of the book. So you can work in it one side at a time. It'll just look like this. You might need to actually use a giant clip to keep this side closed. And then, let's see, 96 pages on this side, on the left side, front and back, plus a few attached or loose pieces that might have been added, and that does not include some of the artwork that I included just to show you how you can use this journal and for inspiration. On this side is 92 pages, and what I realized was this could be a lefty handbook or notebook side. You could start, as a left-hander. Over here, wherever it wants to fall, it is pamphlet stitch, so it's not my traditional book binding. That's why it's not laying flat necessarily, because you can see here, it was just the pamphlet stitch binding, so 3-hole. Again, this is not going to be as full as my other projects just because I want it to be your palette and sketch art book, and also I didn't want to fill it up too much because I keep telling myself not to add too much art, but I just like the last one, what did I do? I added 52 pieces. Anyway, so here are some of the, just assume all of the pages are French, vintage and or antique, and or the Strathmore drawing paper, my favorite. This one is off-white, so it's not the white that I traditionally use, but I will be adding, let's see, what was it, cotton paper, rough, and some individual Strathmore drawing papers in possibly white and or other types of watercolor paper. This jar is actually a jar that is in LaConner, Washington, which is known as an artist's haven, and it's near the San Juan Islands in the upper, upper northwest corner of Washington State. So San Juan Islands are islands before you get to Vancouver Island. And there's this planning jar that I wanted my friend Susie to have. I mean, if I win the lottery tonight, I'm definitely going back to buy it for her. In fact, I want to go back this July for the artist walk once a month. And I did, let's see, Oncati watercolor paper mixed media. So the base is acrylic with watercolor, and then of course I use my oil pastels just because I love texture in things, especially if they're jars or containers. And so all of the palette pieces are hand painted by me. Let me see if I have any left over. Was create colors and different swatches for colors that I knew would probably go in here based on the French pages and plus some of the artwork that I knew I wanted to include. So this is my personal journal, art, sketch, and idea notebook. And maybe I'll do a flip through of this one time just so you see what my ideas and process looks like before I get to the journal. So for the rest of the pages, there's not going to be art on every page. You're just going to see Strathmore, original French papers, and then wherever I add my art, I try to add it separately and taped. So 96 pages on this side, and I also tried to give you prompts from Pinterest. So this is one of my favorite palette images for some reason, and I wanted to replicate it here. This side is just some watercolor cherries because it's my favorite fruit. Very addicting, of course, too much sugar, but I love cherries. And then the 3 types of cherry colors. I'm always experimenting with different reds. Lots of places to journal if that's what you're going to use it for, if you're not necessarily an artist. You'll see the rustings of all the old paper clips. Let's see, this is Monet, I think Lady in a Garden, just as a prompt to help you. I did glue down some pressed flowers. Some are a few years old. Let's see, did I put this flower is from 2024. I couldn't remember if it was a ranunculus or a peony petal. I'm not sure, but it's super smooth. So what I do is I use the Uhu glue stick to put it down, and then my friend does a gloss over with either clear gesso or Aline's regular tacky glue with a little bit of water, I think 1:1. And then you could do a glaze right over your petals if you don't want to buy that expensive I don't remember what it's called. But and then, because these are meant to be orange poppies, which are my favorites, the dark orange or the giant red poppies, here are the two color swatches I wanted to pick up on so you could see. This is my palette. Original book pages, they've been washed cotton rag. Black and white are colors too, and these are my, let's see, loose calligraphy pen and Sumi ink sketches on the Japanese rice paper, but the Japanese rice paper is super thin, so I glued it, as you can see here, to mixed media paper, and on the back was just some of my early practice with my stick, my ink stick that I used on the poetry and art project. It's mark making, not necessarily at its best, but I do love this black and white. I created something for my sister-in-law, and these are just some of the practice sheets, and I tore them up and made them into stationery for her and kept a couple pieces for myself or whoever owns this. And then some white gel pen doodles on some of these eco-rusted pages from Sagita. So I tried not to make anything permanent, but there might be a couple permanent pieces of art sketches in there. These are digitals. Let's see. It's meant to look like an old artist's palette book, I guess. I think it might have been digitally created though, or used AI, because none of the handwriting looks like real writing. But it's a great concept, and you might want to use that. A lot of blank pages. I told you I didn't create as much art. And then I do love, you know, my centerfold to have a little bit of color. And then here's a piece of my early palette, which I included here because I just loved how it turned out for some reason. You know, I'm always seeing shapes in things, but you could flip it over and continue to use it as a palette or use the smooth side. A couple pieces of the hydrangea in from my mom's garden. And then another Monet, I don't remember what it's titled. I'll put it up on the screen. And then just some of the colors that I picked up, even though hers is baby pink. I did some of the Suminagashi ink, Japanese ink technique that I had started a few weeks ago. I'm still practicing. Some of my artwork, you could just tip it in using that black tape. A little piece of the film right over some more of the petals from the hydrangea from my mom's garden. On this page, which does flip out a little bit there, that way. You can rip that off and actually sketch on it a little easier. Oh, it's actually a pin, the original pin, so be careful there. It's a little rusted. And then these open up a little more. Just some of the notes on that receipt. And then a back pocket using some of the same canvas, French canvas in the back. Okay, so here's your pile of the extra French documents and original pin. So again, be careful, an original paper clip. And then shorter pages on this side, but they're still 92 plus because I did add art pieces that might be paper clipped or black taped. And so I just did some doodling. These are little bits of dried petals from a pansy from my friend's garden in California. An iris, and this is using the palette papers that I made you. You know, just ripping them up. It's actually kind of fun to make paper art after you've painted the item, and then just add the details with your pens and or your smaller acrylic markers, whatever your medium is or tool of choice is. And then there's the palette. Are actual dried petals from the bouquet that I received from my sister-in-law this year. It's not from an iris. I think this might have been a purple I don't know if it was a tulip, I don't remember anymore, but it curled up when I dried it, and I thought, yeah, that is definitely an iris. Plus, I've been watching Renee Mueller, and she is awesome at charcoal or Stabilo pencil sketches of irises, and I'm not good yet. So I decided to just make these petals of a different flower into an iris. Shorter pages. This is actually a digital scan of one of my practice sketches for my sister-in-law. It should have said something like Le Bistro instead of cafe, since I added an olive oil jar and a vinegar jar. Super messy. My calligraphy brush that I love to use was Sumi ink, and I loved how bold it was, so I went ahead and gave it to her even though it was just a practice piece. But I remembered to scan it this time. Picture of Renoir in the garden. And I just love how he paints, and of course, great colors for the olive oil and the actual olives, and then the coffee. Well, actually, that's still maybe a vinegar color, even vinaigrette. So again, more black tape. There's Chagall, my all-time favorite. And this piece is called I Have Seen in Real Life. And here are the pieces that I told you about that I didn't realize I was painting like him. Maybe because I am influenced with him without really realizing it, or now I do. But these are the colors, and then here is a part of the big piece that I was painting, and the other part of it is right here. I don't remember how I cut it up anymore. But now that I look closer at his technique, I seem to like my curves and my jagged edges, not knowing what I'm actually drawing. I think this was oil. And then these colors actually pick up from this painting here. It's just a still life. What did he call it? I'll flash it on the screen. It's pretty basic. And the greens and the navy blues. This is my favorite spread right here. So these are definitely Monet. I thought something about it reminded me, just like the last journal, of the water lilies. But then the more I looked, I thought, oh, those look like leaves hanging from a tree. And then I found his painting, Le Déjeuner, or the luncheon, and how the tree leaves just fall in the background. It's not exact or anything, but I just love it. This is a piece of one of my palettes, one of my transparency palettes, and this is the one that reminds me of his Monet's grassy fields or florals, or even the water lilies paintings. You see grassy hills or the cloudy sky about to rain on you, whatever. The moon, silver moon, like that last project. So I put this in here just as sort of a nod to what I'm seeing here, but also to prompt you. Of course, whoever owns this probably already has 100 sketches in their head that they know of, that they know they'll be working out. So 92 pages I already mentioned here, but see, it's mostly all blank. I did a really good job of not adding too much art. This is Monet's Green Sea, which I love. I didn't quite get the dark greens that I wanted in the palette. You know, I got some olive greens, but I think I just need to add more blues. So I'm still learning how to mix, obviously. There's one that reminded me, look at that. It looks like the ships on the green sea. And then the black might be gray-blue background in the painting is actually what's on the centerfold here. So I just simply taped this piece of the transparency right over that. But I hope I never stop seeing things in the most abstract of items. And then another piece of the transparency, but I just love the crisscrosses, so I thought that might be fun to have as a backdrop, or you could use it as your transparency, but looks good with a blue ink pen. And this one does coordinate with, okay, so this is Sagita's Eco Dye papers that I had painted on the back, and figured out the type of purple that matched my mom's hydrangea. And then this is part of that palette that I had created. And then there's the other side of that document. It's a very dark background, but you could do something dramatic, maybe some black sumi ink or anything actually. Oh, I wanted to show you how acrylic appears on these vintage French papers. I did not use any clear gesso, but of course you could use some clear gesso if you wanted. But the acrylic did really well on these papers, so there's very limited bleed through. It's actually just see-through because the paper is see-through. But I like the texture without having to gesso all the time. Actually, what I'm gonna do, and then there's the back, just a couple more pages, and then the back end paper from the original book, the marbled end paper. And show you the palette collector notebook inspired by that apron. So I glued this. This is a piece of cotton, tea-stained cotton from Tracy. Tracy Tries Journaling in Canada. So what I did was, here are the washed pages from the original official court letters and, you know, for savvy and witty people. But I kept all of the extra palette swatches that I painted up for you. In the front, you'll see a couple of blank spots for yourself, but I gave you extra palettes. I put this black tape on there because these are easy to lose. I promise. I've lost them every time. So until you don't need it anymore or it's covered in paint, I just have that black painter's tape on there. You have some of the greens, a blue-gray. Notice once you start using these up, you actually have your cotton rag papers bound in this little notebook that you can sketch straight on, or even sketch straight on while you're playing with the colors. You don't have to gesso it, but you could experiment and see how your acrylics lay on here, or your oil pastels, or your pastels. Different blues. One of my favorite teals. I was trying to capture the color of this robin's egg that is from my mom's yard. It's starting to break and I'm starting to lose the color, but it's that perfect robin's egg blue with the little specks on it, and it's starting to break apart the more I try to handle it. So I'm trying to finally capture it in paint, but I'm struggling a little bit. I finally figured it out, I think, but I'm gonna have to keep practicing. Or you can make an abstract piece or just sketch right on there. But I just love the different colors and how they play acrylic on the black. Didn't show up as well, but still fun. And then some of the neutrals, not all these dark browns or olives. Then there's a picture of Chagall in the back, which is just a tuck, transparency palettes in the back here, or if you have a bookmark or extra little bits or so. But it is clean, it's been washed. just in case you're worried about that. But anyway, so that's the journal, the Artist's Palette and Sketch collection. 96 pages, 92 pages, plenty of blank space for your own sketches, your own artwork. I think I did a good job leaving it alone this time. The hardest part was figuring out the construction and the layout, and oh, I didn't show you the middle part here. I reinforced the spine so that when it's closed, whatever papers that you're going to build into it not only are protected, but also to give it that original book spine look and feel when you're handling it, especially when you're traveling. So I put 3 strips of leather. Yeah, super easy to travel with, super easy to handle. You don't have to be extra careful with it. It's really reinforced. The covers won't come off. They're glued and they're stitched. 3-hole pamphlet stitch on each side with the linen threads. So anyway, I hope whoever gets to own this in the future has fun and enjoys the fact that it is a salvaged book from 1882, and it has a new life, new purpose, and hope that it inspires some creativity. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you soon.